Welcome to Twisted Liquid RC Boats. Today's episode of Twisted Liquid RC Boats is proudly brought to you by Slycat Racing. For all your RC boat needs, slycatracing.com. Good morning, everyone. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a moment to make a correction on a mistake I made in the last episode, transom laminating. I guess I need to get my glasses replaced or go back and learn how to read better in school. I said that they needed the 207 hardener in the manual with the 105 epoxy in order to do laminating. Guys, I was incorrect. It's actually the 209. They want you to use an extra slow hardener for laminating. Now, this was my mistake because I followed the red line and I should have read better. But having said that, I want you guys to know that there's 4 different hardeners that you can use with this 105 system. I'm quickly going to give you the numbers. 205 is a fast hardener, 206 is a slow hardener, 209 is an extra slow hardener, and 207, like I'm using, is for clear coating and clear fiberglassing, mainly your sealing work. So guys, I apologize, I made a mistake. If you're doing laminating with the 105, you really should use 209 as recommended by the product manufacturer. But, having said that also, all I got done is an extra clear hardener put on my transom that hardened a little bit quicker. So, I wanted to make that correction this morning before we do our first bottom on our boat. Hope you enjoy today's episode. I'll return you to our regular scheduled program. Good day, everybody. Welcome back to Twisted Liquid RC Boats and the continuation in our Zippkits A-Box Crackerbox build. If you joined us in our last episode, you know how we got our transom laminated on our boat. The only additional work that I've done off camera that you guys haven't seen is I took my sanding blocks and I done some fine sanding. I removed all the overhang on the top edge of the sides right here where they meet the lower chines and blended them smooth on both sides of the boat. I brought it right to a nice tip right at the front so everything flows right nice and even towards the bow of the boat. And I took the time to sand off the overhang on the transom. Now guys, as you can see on the table, I've got what I always tell you, a clamped dry fit done, and I've got it done on the first bottom part that we have to put on our hull. We have 2 bottom halves that we have to install on this boat, and we've got to do them separately. So I've got an assortment of clamps and an assortment of hand tools laid out that are heavy to weigh this bottom piece down on the hull and hold it to it. And I've had it like it now for probably about a day. And the reason I'm doing it, like I've told you, if you're not in a rush to build your boat and you want to take these flat pieces that you get when you purchase the kit and do what I call pre-bend them, it makes installing them for the final time when you do all your epoxy work so much easier. The wood takes a natural shape of the boat. It ends up being easier to install because that little bit of curve and bend that you put in it while it's sitting on the boat and clamped, it takes a fitment to the boat so much easier. Guys, a few little tips I'd like to bring to highlight on you before we do any epoxy work and install this first bottom piece. In the manual, they want us to take a measurement device, tape measure, ruler, whatever you want to use. They want us to come across the bulkheads and mark a little pencil mark right directly in the middle of them. Now I've already got this done. I've also got some pencil marks added right here on the bottom where it meets everywhere at a bulkhead. I want to be able to put this back in the exact same location that it's sitting in right here now. Couple things I want you to notice. I want you to notice that here along the keel where the bottom meets, you need to leave an 1/8 inch on each side, guys, and a little bit of bevel sanding, just slightly, without taking too much off the keel, like it tells you in the manual, is all that's necessary to get the bottom to fit the boat. Also too, right here by the back edge of bulkhead number 3, that's exactly where you're going to find a little slot position in the bottom floor. It's in the other half also. That's for our turn fin to stick down through. My suggestion is mark your pencil marks so that just the start of the slot for the turn fin is exactly right on the edge of the bulkhead. It'll make lining everything up so much easier. Guys, I removed the laser burn along this edge because when I do bring the two bottoms together, I'd like to be able to use a good bead of epoxy between them and get them to adhere together. At the bow of the boat, I've left the overhang with it clamped right here right now, but the line has took an exact position with the middle grain of this 1/4 inch piece of keel wood we got made. If you look right down through it, you can see the grain of the wood, the middle grain. And the bottom is sitting directly in line with it, right where it's to right now. You will have some overhang along your outside edges, along your transom, and you're going to have overhang at your bow. So take your time and fit your bottom to your boat and get it fitting perfectly. Now guys, I'm going to do this no differently than what I done when we done the side sheeting. I'm not going to use just 1 coat of epoxy. I'm going to do 2. And in the second coat that I mix up, I'm going to put a little bit of colloidal silica in with it. And the reason I want to put the colloidal silica in is the first coat, I want it to soak into the wood. The second coat, I want it to sit on top of the wood so there's something to grab to and bite to and adhere on this piece as we're putting it to the hull. Also guys, if I had this off the boat now and flipped it over, I have scuffed the edges on the inside here with sandpaper just to promote adhesion. I done it along the keel and I done it along the far side and along the transom. Anywhere that you can promote your adhesion with a little extra sanding before you epoxy, I highly suggest that you do it. You are putting a fair amount of flex in this 1/8 thick piece of plywood, and you have to get it clamped there easily. Now there's not a lot of stress on this right now. I can remove that, a lot of the weight, and I can get this down just to basically clamps, and it still doesn't want to lift off. I only got this here as additional support. Also, where I've got my weight placed with the various tools, I've got it along bulkhead edges, or I have it along engine rail edges, like you see right here. So, when we mix up our epoxy, we basically have this surface area that you see bare right here to coat. We got to do our bulkheads, engine rail, and our lower chines. We got to get that guy sitting in place exactly like he is right now. We got to clamp it exactly like it is right now, and we got to let it cure. You know the work we're going to get done in this episode, guys? It's time to mix up some epoxy and let's get to work. Okay, guys, we got a good batch of West Systems G-Flex mixed up here. And we're going to get our first coat of epoxy on our wood in order to let it soak into the wood. And then we're going to quickly get another coat mixed up. And we're going to come in and add colloidal silica to it. And we're quickly going to go over all the surface areas again. And then we're going to lay our bottom on and we're going to clamp it and we're going to let it cure. You do have to mix up a little bit because you are going to have to coat them chines pretty good. The second coat I mix up, I'm probably going to add a little additional in my cup. So I get another good coating right on top of the wood. But right now we just need to get a good coating up these engine rails. these parts, bulkheads, let them all soak in. Around the chines, and we'll come in with a thicker second coat, like I say, and we'll end up getting this in place. You do have to work in a timely manner, like I've stressed before doing stuff here. We are getting a first coat on, then we're going to come in and do a second coat right away. We're going to use a clean cup. We're going to use a fresh brush. It's not really advisable to mix multiple batches of epoxy up, so in one cup and together like that, so we'll do it separately. When we get to the keel here now, guys, we really only need to coat half of it. We only need to coat the side that we're adhering to. If we do get a little additional epoxy on it, we'll merely bring it off with a razor knife and make a nice groove for the next bottom to fit into. One of my goals in this build series for you guys is to let you see every piece of wood getting installed, let you see the complete epoxy procedure, so that if you guys go and do this boat yourselves, you have a decent reference to go by. And guys, we can go right up to the nose. Now this is where you can add a little bit of extra thick coat to it. These chines are at least probably 3/4 of an inch in some places. In the front they're probably even wider with the side on it. So you can get a good coat of epoxy on all this right now, because your floor is sitting flat against it. And once I get these two coats in place, I'm going to quickly show you how well I was dry fitting it. I looked up through the bottom of the boat at the transom, and you'll know when you got this bottom in place, because it'll be sitting dead even against all the bulkheads, the chine, the engine rails. You'll be able to see the wood sitting right flat on it, and you'll know you got it in place. And I know this might seem boring watching epoxy work like this, but I think the biggest thing I'm trying to show you guys is that it takes techniques to do it right and get success with it. And I've had to learn those techniques myself, and I find passing on knowledge is not a wasted thing. My outlook on this is different than some guys. I enjoy building these boats. I take it as a patience game. I'm not in a rush to do this. That's why you see me pre-fitting pieces and pre-bending them. If I know I can do something that's going to make my life easier, I'm going to do it. And I'll refer to the manual, and I'll use the manual, and I won't be stupid to the manual. But if I know that something's going to work for me, I'm going to use it. Because techniques are what you need to use to succeed with this. Now guys, that's a really quick, good first coat on that. Not too long applying it. Decent amount of timing. You do not need to put any here on this stuffing tube support. This is a little lower than the floor, and if you push it down there with epoxy, you're going to get a little bit of a wave. Like I told you, where I had things weighted was where there's framing to, because I don't want to get any waviness. I'd like to get this piece just nice. So I'm quickly going to mix up another batch of epoxy. I'm going to add some colloidal silica. We're going to get a second coat on it, and then we're going to clamp that part to that boat. Okay guys, I got my second batch of epoxy mixed up quickly. I've only been off camera for a couple minutes, that's all. I'm quickly going to come in and get a second coat on all of this right away. We're going to get that bottom in place, we're going to clamp it, we're going to hold it, and we're going to get it adhered to the boat. Now I'll keep saying the same thing over and over again. Don't make a big mess, but work diligently. You do have to get this done in a timely manner. I hope you guys can see the little bit of colloidal silica I added to the epoxy. It's letting it sit on top of the wood. This West Systems is a great product. You do get extra working time with this, which is something I really like about it. I mixed up a little extra this time, because if I do want to add anywhere in an extra spot, I will. Any excess that may squeeze out when I cut the boat off the jig, I can scrape it away. And that technique is definitely one that's useful, and I want you guys to see it. I want you to know that it works for holding these big sheeting parts to a boat like this that you have to pre-bend in these kits like this. Remember, this piece is flat when we get it, and it's not going to be flat when we install it. So, couple coats. When you're doing most of your sheeting work like this, these larger, thicker pieces, it's definitely advisable. And in my opinion, I don't think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's excess work that's a waste. Some people might think that it's crazy doing it. I don't. I honestly don't. The sides stayed on this boat really nice when we put them on. If you give the epoxy time to do its job and cure, once you clamp it and you do some proper preparing for it with some sanding and that, I think you'll have a lot of success. It's just a matter of a little patience. And I'm not really worried about how long some of these episodes are working out, because I want you guys to see this. I really do. And if I fail on camera, well, you can all laugh at me, like I've said before here a few times. But I've been trying to pay attention and learn as I'm going. And I'm not planning on having to do this again. I'm only planning on having to do this application one time. And if it works, why not do the extra step? It is the largest span of wood we've put on this boat yet. Up until now, our sides were the biggest. But now we're installing large spans of wood here now. The floor is going to squeeze right against it, lay flat on it. It'll just squeeze out on the inside is all. And around the outside edge, we can scrape it off, sand it off after. But we're getting a thick coat of epoxy all over this part. Two, actually, I should say. Two thick coats of epoxy. And on top of the first coat that we laid in, I'm just going to use it all up, guys, because like I say, I did mix a little extra. This is a wide area. Getting good adhesion here is not going to hurt. And the way I had this clamped and set there before, it was all flush against this side, perfect. So, on that note, gentlemen, that's the second coat of epoxy on. Let's grab our side off camera here, bring it into the screen, into the view. Just gonna lay it approximately where it goes, get this stuff out of my way, seal my bottles off good. Give my hands a little quick wipe here. Now as you lay it apart in place with the epoxy, it's going to want to adhere to it. It's going to want to stick to it. Everything is sticky. But we're just going to get things lined up. Get them so nothing can move. And it stays in place. Right where we want. I kind of like to push my hand down on the wood, pull any stress that may be in and out of it. Keep lining it up with my pencil marks. Get it exactly in position like I had it before. I can clamp right there. Clamp right there. Everything's staying down pretty good and tight. Now this is what I want you to notice. Even without a lot of clamps, guys, it's right along that edge. It's right tight to the edge. I can look and see. And this is where pre-fitting all your parts on your boat helps. Don't get in a panic. If you gotta wiggle something, do it now. If you just gotta move it a little, do it now. Now's the time to do it. Have patience with what you're doing. But do try and keep an even gap here, so it makes it easier to install the next bottom. And that's the biggest key. I'm not worried about scraping a little bit of epoxy off. I can easily do that. I just want to stay in that middle grain of wood right there and keep it down against the keel. Guys, this is the easy side because you can clamp it right here. The next one, we got to weight it all. I'm going to try and get some dumbbells because I don't own any. I should have some for doing this because it'd be nice to use it more than other things I'm using, like tools and such, to weigh it down. But I think I'm going to invest in some coming up soon. Okay guys, it's the next morning after we epoxied the first bottom half onto the frame of our boat, and I ran and grabbed my good old morning Tim Hortons coffee. Let's roll up the rim now. You can actually win something if you buy a coffee. So I've had this cure now for probably 12 hours, 14 hours or so, somewhere around there. So there's one or two things going to happen here now. It's either I'm going to look like a complete fool in front of you guys, or that bottom half is going to unweight and it's going to stay on that boat, and it should have a decent shape to it. I don't want no waviness in it. I want it to have a nice flow to it. But most of all, I want it to stay adhered. And this is why I've been showing you guys in this build about using 2 coats of epoxy in places for doing your work, and how to properly mix a little colloidal silica in with it in order to get good results, get the bonding you want with the pieces, and especially pieces that you're putting a gradual bend in as you install them on the boat. Now it's regular to get a little bit of stick. You get a little bit of epoxy like that, but it's no big deal. Just wiggle your clamp. And very little tension on these, as you can see. It's all just finger tension. I know some fellas might have thought that I was distorting my upper chines by clamping this way, but like I told you, I put a coat of sealing epoxy West Systems in there before I did do any clamping on that chine, and that stiffened it up greatly. And there's one clamp left, and the bottom stayed on the boat. Now, I know I might sound like I repeat myself a lot, and I know that you guys might think that I'm a little slow at doing my building the way I do it, but I do it the way I do it by pre-bending, pre-fitting, dry clamping, and proper epoxy application in order to get the results you see. Now guys, I really learned this trick building the Zippkits SLR missile. The first forward non-trip I done on that boat, the first real good curve I had to put into the boat as I was building it, I done the one coat epoxy process. And the next morning, all excited like this to see if you had a good job done, and the piece instantly popped off the boat. And I said, you've got to change something in your procedure, your technique, and you've got to learn from it. So I learned from that. And now anytime that I'm conquering this big, large sheeting with gradual bending in it like this, I'm going to use a 2-coat method. I'm going to add colloidal silica to my second coat, and I'm going to make sure that I get the results that I'm getting. And I can pull up on that now. It doesn't want to lift off anywhere. Even around the overhang, I'm pulling up on it. The whole jig is moving. I'm kind of glad I showed you that. Even back overhang. It's stuck there. It doesn't want to come off. So, I know the manual says 1 coat, guys, for doing these parts. But in my opinion, and just from techniques that I've learned and have figured out that work, maybe 2 and a little bit of colloidal silica mixed in with your second one is a really good idea. Anyways, guys, having said all that, we're going to conclude the first bottom half install episode right now. I'm going to pre-fit the second half and get it all set up to fit this perfectly. I'm really happy. I've got an excellent seam right down the keel. It's right dead center, right in the line with my chines. Putting a second bottom to this boat will be done with the same procedure, and it shouldn't be too difficult. I want all you guys out there to take care of yourselves. I want you to have a really good day. I can't thank you enough for watching our build of the Zippkits A-Box Crackerbox, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching, everyone. Feel free to like and subscribe. Take care and stay safe.